right, I'll call to order Millersville Board of Commissioners Work Session Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018 at 5:53 p.m. Discussion related to contractual building official services and ordinance 17-688, amending the budget.
As I was reading over this right here, it's for 15 inspections?
Minimum of 15 inspections per month.
Oh, per month?
Per month.
Okay.
And 2 commercial inspections per month.
Per month.
And that's based on the homes that we have right now. That doesn't count sheds and accessory buildings. So I figured we came up with $70-something $100 total. I figured if we put in 10,000, we'd be covered for the 6 months.
That's 6 months. So what about the month he doesn't do anything?
He doesn't get paid for it.
Okay.
He bills us only on the inspections he does.
Got it.
So it's $10,000 a month?
$10,000 for the next 6 months.
6 months, okay.
But you're only putting that in, that's not necessarily going to be spent unless he does the inspection.
Exactly.
Okay, that's just.
I figured that was enough to cover us for the 6 months.
What did Tony Allers do for the city?
Tony used to be our public works director.
I knew we had one lead go to Alaska several years ago. It wasn't him, was it?
I don't
I think it was him.
Was it?
Yeah, somebody
was
left.
from up north
Yeah,
somewhere,
he went
yeah.
back to Alaska. The reason I said that.
Well, yeah, that's what I mean, up north and up north is different. The reason why I'm actually recommending Mr. Allers is because the other company actually nickels and dimes you per inspection. They're charging you a per inspection fee, where he is doing certain things inclusively as one inspection. So.
Wasn't Tony a county inspector at one time also?
Yes, he was.
Really?
Yes, he was, and he went into business for himself.
He was an engineer, but I don't think he was a county inspector.
He did both, from what he told me. Isn't that what he told me?
Yeah, I think he worked at one time,
He might have worked for the county.
back in the
Mhm.
80s.
I've never dealt with him.
All I know is that he's the only one in the entire state that has all these certifications. You name it, he's got it.
Yeah, I saw that.
What do our fee is $75 per inspection?
$75 for inspection on residential. And when it comes down to commercial, anything under 5,000 will be at the same residential rate. Anything over 5,000 square feet, then we'll have to negotiate that. And we'll have to follow that with each permit that comes in and pass it through to the consumer. And the same thing with the plans examinations.
And that does allow for one re-inspection.
Exactly, for nothing.
Yeah, I saw that.
Any questions?
All right, if there's nothing else, we'll move on. Discussion related to classification and compensation plan resolution 17-4-18.
The pay classification ranges table that I put in your packet, ignore it, I've got a new one. That has been corrected and, oh, I'm sorry, highlighted. That's the maximum per hour rate. Okay, if I may, Mr. Mayor? In your packets, I put in the section of our charter, 621-102, and the one I'm focusing on is letter B, which is the one I read at the last meeting. The, except as otherwise provided in this charter, the compensation of all officers and employees of the city shall be fixed by the city manager within the limits of the appropriations ordinance, which is our budget ordinance, and in accordance with the comprehensive pay plan adopted by the Board of Commissioners. To my knowledge, there has never been a comprehensive plan adopted by this commission, okay, or any commission, I should say, within the city. This is what we are trying to accomplish, is meeting our charter. At the same time, in our personnel manual, which is the next paperwork I gave you, is Section 4, the compensation plan, which very clearly details what the compensation plan has to have, how it can be amended, how can it be changed, who's responsible for monitoring it. And in that compensation plan, it also talks about positions and position descriptions. There have been only 2 position descriptions that I know of have been approved by this board. At least since I've been here, I don't know that they were ever approved prior to this. I know we have some very, very old ones. But that's the position of records clerk and the position of codes enforcement officer, because I brought those to y'all in order to get those positions approved. I've also attached the compensation study and the findings of that study. I also emailed them to you. And when you look at your pay classification plan, the one I've handed you today, all that is a condensed version of the long one that was given to us by the pay study. Okay, the pay study showed increments from step 1 all the way to step 13. I took step 1 and step 6. 6 is medium, and step 13 is maximum. Put the hourly rates on there, what the annual salary is, and then at the end of the chart, I put the pay grade, which is what the pay grade was in this study per position, and then put the current salaries. The last column shows you in 3 different colors. I figured I'd try to make it as simple as possible, because this is going to be attached to the resolution. Anything in pink at this point in time are at or above the minimum. That would look a lot larger if you showed 13 police officers, because they're all at or above minimum. Okay, so you would see a longer column. Anyone that is in the yellow has not reached the minimum range yet. We have tried over 2 years to try to bring them up slowly, and we're getting there. That was the plan when we got this study, was to do it slowly and incrementally until we can get everybody up as close as we can to the minimum. Then you have 3 positions that are showing in blue that are below the minimum range. The reason for that is, number 1, we've got 2 interim positions that have just been taken over that need certifications. That's our fire chief, and it also is the records clerk. She has to get NCIC and all the other certifications before she can be paid anywhere near the minimum. And that is the reason for that. The other one is our code enforcement officer. He has absolutely no experience, and our previous code enforcement officer also handled building permits. So for that reason, he is also under the minimum. This, again, I repeat, is a guide. And correct me, please, sir, I may be completely wrong when I say this. An ordinance is a law, a resolution is not. Am I correct?
Yes.
Okay. I just wanted to make sure I wasn't misstating that. A resolution, in my mind, is the intent of this body to do something,
Well, I think it can accurately be described as a policy.
or a policy. It's not a law. So therefore, I know that this board, some of the members of this board were concerned that they would be tied to this pay classification to the point where we are obligated to pay this. And my opinion is, we've received a study from a competent company. We've been following that study based on the minimums that they gave us and trying to bring people up to the minimum. This is adopting a range for me to be able to work with. Plus, also meeting what our personnel manual has in it and our charter says.
But if any change of those ranges has to be done by the
Has to
board.
be done by the board via another resolution.
Right.
Okay, I just wanted to make sure that I was not giving them bogus stuff. With that being said, I have attached every single position description that was created by MTS for all our employees prior to this study. Now, what I want to also bring to your attention is, if you look at these position descriptions, they were created for if Holly leaves tomorrow, okay, what is necessary from someone in the outside to come and fill her position, okay? If anyone leaves, some of these have secondary education preferred, which means if they have it, great. If they don't, it's not required. Some of these have actual degrees required. The reason for that is you're trying to build a staff, a quality staff, that has the education and the knowledge to be able to lead the city into the future. Now, that does not mean that if somebody like Holly comes and applies for the position that Holly has, and she has 20-some-odd years of experience, those 20 years of experience can't count towards a bachelor's degree or even a master's degree, okay? But it's a guideline. So, in other words, experience can be substituted by education and vice versa. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, we had that issue over at plant, when we went to water treatment up there. If you had a college degree, master's degree, you could go take that test and go automatic to level 6. If not, it took you 5 years to get to that. And then you take the test. You have to take, after 3 years, you take a test, then after 5 years, you take another test. It's a step. But if you got a master's degree or equivalent, then you go take the level 6 test automatically.
Right.
You bypass others.
And these figures were computed by a reputable company. These figures were not computed by me or anyone else. They're completely subjective. Is that the correct word, or objective? Objective, thank you. And that's what you want in something like this, where there is no favoritism or, you know what I'm saying?
Well, one of the things that I do like, after reviewing this again, is the fact that the jobs were matched to job descriptions, not just job titles.
Exactly.
So, you know, because a lot of times job titles can be misleading. And so I'm very glad that they did that. And then the other piece in here as well is they did it based on job descriptions based on all of these cities. And it goes from Metro Nashville, Hendersonville, Smyrna, Columbia, Laverne, Lebanon, Mount Juliet, Tullahoma, Goodlettsville, Dixon, Portland, Lewisburg, White House, Nolensville, Pigeon Forge, Sparta, Ashland City, Waverly, Allgood, Thompson Station, Eagleville, Robertson County, Hendersonville Utilities, Harris-Henry County Public Utility District, and Cheatham County. So it's a huge pool of information to base these salaries on here in Tennessee. So I'm glad that they did that in such a broad range, instead of just in cities, just that are close to our area, I guess is what I'm saying.
It's a tool. It's a tool
Yeah,
for
and this-
management to be able to
And this study was done April 4th, 2016.
correct.
Yeah.
I also wanted to mention that on that same page, if you will look at the bottom where I have the colors, and I have some verbiage next to it because this is going with the resolution, I wanted some clarity as to how this would work. Anybody that has been or is at their actual salary minimum or above will be entitled to a maximum of a 3% increase per year, okay, based on merit and performance. This is what you all wanted, was to be able to give raises based on merit and performance, not just 3% across the board just because. Anyone in the blue are below, like I said, below the base rate because of no certifications or interim status. Once they get their certifications, we will try to bring them closer to the base. Those in yellow are below base, and they will only be allowed, I will only be allowed to give them a maximum of 5% increase per year. So I can't take one person and say, oh, I'm gonna give you 12% just because I like you. You follow what I'm saying? I'm trying to keep this fair and equitable. And if you notice at the bottom, I said that the rates will be based on above percentages only if revenues allow annually. This is a guideline. If the revenues aren't there, we're not going to be able to bring people closer to the base rate. And that's what you all understood when they originally gave us this study, and we all gasped at $132,000 to bring everybody up. You know, it's a process, and it takes time, and it's going to take at least another 2 years to start and bring people the closer we can to where they need to be. Our first concern was our police officers, our line personnel, and the people in public works. You know, because when they get a 3% raise compared to a 3% raise in the department heads, there's a big difference in money. So that's why we've done this.
Yeah, and I read that about the charter, it sort of asks for this, doesn't it?
Charter says we have to have one. Any questions?
There was one set years ago, and the board voted on it. Now, I don't have a copy of it.
I've never seen one, and I don't.
I have seen it, and, I mean, I named a few of the board members that's on there at the time, but it was set at one time. We had one, you know.
And I recall, I think we had one as well, but I don't think it was ever based on a pay study. There was no.
I don't think it was based on a pay study. It was just,
In-task
Salary,
study.
yeah, they do an annual salary study. And that's where the minimum and maximums came from.
Well,
It
we
was
used to
ranges.
pass a pay range for
Right.
every budget,
yeah, yeah, pay range.
Right, that's what it was.
but it wasn't a comprehensive pay plan.
No.
And the position descriptions have never been approved either. And I
Well,
know
we
it.
had those. Ellie Johnson did those years
Did he?
ago.
Oh,
and
okay,
we
so
had
it's
a
from his
booklet.
time.
Yeah, the job description.
I know I've seen them, I just
Yeah,
didn't know
yeah.
whether.
And I can't find mine. I don't even know where mine is, so
I've got one somewhere.
John Brobson may have mine.
Maybe, I think he took it with him, remember?
So the job descriptions, or position title, classification, whatever you want to call it, is that black and white?
No, according to the personnel manual, I can change things as positions evolve. But they have to be brought, those changes need to be brought to you all for approval.
Well, I mean, when I read through all these classifications, and I'm just, there's a couple that I'm gonna point out. Training and experience. Graduation from a standard high school or GED, graduation from an accredited four-year college or university in public administration, fire service management or related field preferred, advanced fire-related courses in administration, personnel management and general education, knowledge of the geographic areas of the city, 10 years of documented fire service experience with at least 4 years in a command level and administrative position in all phases of firefighting operations which provide the required knowledge, abilities, and skills, must meet the state of Tennessee minimum standards and completion of courses as a fire inspector. And then it goes on with necessary special qualifications, driver's license, 21 years old. I don't know how you would get 10 years of documented fire service experience at 21. You started off early. If these are what we're saying the positions are, and this is what I take it, this is what that position demands you have. If we're not gonna follow them, then why would we adopt them?
No, you do need to follow them, but within that, there are certain things that you can do, like we've done with Brandon. He's interim until he gets all of his certifications and meets these qualifications. He meets the 10 years of experience already, okay? It doesn't say that he has to have an actual degree in
It
fire.
says 4 years of college or university in public administration.
Preferred.
No, it don't say nothing about preferred.
Yes, it does. 4-year college or university in public administration, fire service management, or related field preferred. That means if we have 3 candidates and somebody has that education and the other 2 don't, we need to look at that one more seriously. Okay, this is a hiring tool. That doesn't mean he has to have it. He has the 10 years of experience. He has several of these certifications.
I'll be the first to say
But-
Brandon is the perfect person for the job.
Mhm.
I don't have a problem with that. The problem I have is adopting these when I know that most of what's in these are people, even Holly, as experienced as she has, she don't have everything that's in hers.
I know, but she also has 20 years of experience, which will outweigh
She
the
does
education.
now, yes.
Yeah, but somebody
But-
that's coming off the street, no.
And that's what I'm saying. If a person doesn't have part of this, is our fix saying that that person's interim until they get that?
No, what I'm saying is, if we can't find anybody with these certifications, we've got a problem. Because a fire chief needs to have these. This is what's required everywhere else. Now, do we make allowances for people that we're bringing in from the inside, like we have now? Yes, I would, because we have people that would be able to do the job. But if you're looking from the outside, bringing people in from the outside, you don't want to hire somebody that doesn't have these certifications. No more than I would want to hire a building inspector without the certifications that they need.
Well, I guess what I'm saying, if you're gonna if you're putting the position out to the general public, and they have to be held to these standards,
Right.
anybody else that applies to this job ought to be held to the same standard.
Correct. However, why can't we give somebody 6 months to get what they need if
Well,
they're the
I
right
don't have-
candidate?
I don't have a problem with that, but that needs to be in that description. is what I'm saying.
That's discretion from management as to how they handle the hiring. If you find the right candidate and they're willing to do what they need to do in order to get these certifications, then we hire them at a lower rate, and once they get their certifications, then we can bring them up, if it's the right candidate. But when you're looking into the future, I mean, no offense, Mayor, but you want the best educated people that you can get for the job. Michael's the other one. Michael does not have a 4-year degree. Okay, but he's the best candidate for this particular position that he's in.
I don't disagree.
With his experience.
I agree with all of that. But if you're not gonna require everything in this job, this, whatever this is, then why have it?
How do I explain this?
Could you add something, another paragraph in there that basically that you could substitute certain experiences
And education, and that's,
for education? Would that be something that you could look at? In other words, like under where it says training and experience underneath that, that the city manager can substitute experience in this position for 4 years of college or something like that?
when we do our ads, if, we'll say, you know, depending on qualifications, salary depending on qualifications, especially for a department head, a professional, okay? And then after that, we always put experience or education can be substituted.
Yeah, experience
Okay.
can be substituted for education.
And, yeah, and the same thing with education for experience, because you may have somebody that's got, you know, a 4-year degree that may fit in another position just because they have a 4-year degree. You follow where I'm coming from?
Should, since you're putting that in the advertisement for a job, should we not also put it in this description?
We can do it if you want me to. I mean, if that would make everybody
Yeah.
feel more comfortable, we can. It's usually not in position descriptions, but
The
I'm
sta-
happy
the-
to-
The state has it. The state
Oh, does it
actually-
have it in the
The state
descriptions?
actually, within the job description, it states specifically that certain experience can be substituted for education. I don't know if it does it vice versa, but I understand. the
you saw,
point.
you know what I'm
Yeah,
talking
yeah.
about.
Well, another one, records. Training and experience, college associate's degree, bachelor's preferred, experience in police fire records, and then it says and preferred. And again, I don't have a problem with the person that's doing this or fixing to do this to have none of that. Absolutely none.
And again, it's preferred. It's not required.
Kind of what he's trying to say is, if
What I'm
you're
trying-
requiring this right here, but yet you hire someone that don't have it,
If
Then
it's
that makes a
preferred,
difference.
it's not required. Preferred
Then
makes
say-
a
then don't
candidate stand
require it.
out.
If it's preferred, just leave it out. Don't require it.
You would prefer somebody that has that kind of
I would
education.
prefer that we follow these guidelines if we're gonna accept them. That's what I would prefer. But if we're not gonna follow these guidelines, then I wouldn't even adopt them.
Well,
I
and
mean, I don't see them needed.
I have to disagree, and here's why, because I used to work for an employment agency. And so what you are trying to do is specify the very best candidate for that position. So that's why she's putting in the word preferred. So if you have 10 candidates that come in, but you have one that has a bachelor's degree, an associate's degree, or 20 years' experience, when you go to interview those 3 candidates, you would think that you're gonna want the one with the bachelor's degree. Well, that's not necessarily true. If you've got somebody straight out of college with a bachelor's degree, but you've got somebody who's got 20 years' experience, when you're interviewing those 3 candidates, because you're putting the word preferred, you could actually select whichever candidate that you feel is best suited for that position. But you are stating that, then you have somebody who's 18 years old, fresh out of high school, and never done any of the things in the experience. So naturally, you're gonna want one of those 3 that have some of that background or something that pertains to that, or you feel like is best suited for the position than you are somebody fresh out of high school. So it is preferred to have someone who is best suited with those qualifications to fill that role. And that's why she's put not required, but preferred, because that's what's best suited for that job.
If I'm hiring a framer that doesn't know what a hammer is, that's a hairdresser, ain't gonna get hired.
Well, and that's the thing, same thing, she didn't have to hire any of them. She didn't have to hire the associate, nor the bachelor, nor the 20 years experience.
Well, that's what I'm saying. If I'm looking for
If
a
they can't do
framer,
the job, but still they are preferred because they have those qualifications.
if I'm looking for a framer, must be able to drive a nail, must be able to operate a saw, must be able to climb a ladder, must be able to walk on a forklift. That's not preferred, they have to have it, period. If they don't, they're out of the running.
Okay, but let me ask you this question then. So you've got, let's just say you've got 4 candidates, and you've got the one that's been in construction for a very long time, and you talk to this person, they have great work ethics, they have great recommendations, okay, and all of that. And so you've got this candidate here that this is the one you want to hire because they have all those qualifications, right? Correct? Now, hold on, just go with me. Okay, so now let's say whatever, you don't have any of those candidates, but you have an 18-year-old out there that's ready to work hard, that has good ethics, but he doesn't have any of this stuff.
If I'm looking for a framer, he won't do, because he don't know nothing.
But if you can teach and train him at a lower rate, yes, there are plenty of young kids out there that are willing to work hard, if that was the only one you had.
If you can teach and train them, but
And she's not gonna pay them the full salary. She said right there, if they do not have the qualifications, she's not paying them the full salary. Because they are in training.
Excuse me just a moment. Where does it say preferred
on what?
on any of this?
Some of them
In the-
say
in the
preferred,
very-
some of
the
them
last
don't.
thing
On
before the
on
signature.
fire chief,
Yeah, it'd be right before the signature, under training, or it's under,
Training and experience, first paragraph.
yeah, right before you get down to where they sign and date it. And it's in the same place on all of them.
But I guess my thing is that when I work for the employment agency, that's how even the advertising was written that way. And it was put down preferred. And if you'll look up ads, it'll have that on there. It does.
All I'm saying is, we're not hiring people with these qualifications.
It's a guideline, yeah. It is a guideline, that for the best suited for that position. would be those
Thank you,
people
that's the
that have those
correct word. It's a
qualifications.
guideline for the
Then-
best suited for that position.
Yeah,
Then I don't know why we need this. Just hire the best person for the job. That's the only sentence
But you have to
need.
have a job description. You have to have
For what?
what their job is and what the normal no more than when you were looking for a city manager.
Okay, then I'm gonna say this, and this is gonna make some people mad, but it's just going to make some people mad. We got a tax clerk that's taking over as a records clerk. No training as a records clerk, but she's a tax clerk. It's the only person we looked at, correct?
Yes, it's an internal candidate.
We've got a public works employee that's taking over codes enforcement. Has no experience in codes enforcement. Only person we've looked at.
Internal candidate. We're supposed to give them a chance to advance. We did the same thing with
I don't
Brandon.
have a problem with that. Same thing with Brandon. Fire chief, he's been in the fire department, he's the assistant fire chief. He's as close as anybody's gonna get to being fire chief. But he don't have a lot of these qualifications, but he's the only candidate we looked at.
Correct. Brandon was also the only candidate we looked at when he was codes enforcement officer, and he had no experience whatsoever.
Okay.
People applied.
No, I think we did. We interviewed for that.
All I'm saying, and I think all three of them have a good chance at doing a good job in all three areas. That I don't have a problem with. It's just, they don't fit this.
But again, it's a guideline. That's what I'm trying to say.
But it's a guideline that you're not following, though.
I am following it. If you're putting somebody in as an interim and giving them a chance to get those certifications, and I brought this to y'all when I made the decision as to why I wanted to do it that way, as far as Brandon was concerned. I said, he's missing some.
Saturday is the first time I've ever seen these.
None of y'all have ever seen these.
I know, that's why.
That's why I'm bringing them to you.
But I can't have an opinion on something that I've never seen
I understand.
until I see it. I seen it Saturday, and I don't like what I see.
Okay. Like I said, there are certain certifications he still has to get. As a matter of fact, he's already gotten 2 of them. He's already in class for 2 more. And once he gets them, he will be at that exact thing that we require. And then we can pay him what that says it's required. We're not paying him anywhere near what he requires until he finishes.
Is this a guideline for implementing the pay system? Is that what this is?
It's a guideline for the pay system. It's also a guideline for hiring and a guideline to put positions out there. Like any other position, they have a description of the job, what the best candidate should have, and if you don't have it, then it's up to us to give them the opportunity to get it, if that's the best candidate. In my mind, Brandon is the best candidate, rather than bringing somebody from the outside. I'd rather promote from inside.
I agree with you, Brandon's the best candidate, and I like the idea of promoting from within the city, but I also see what the mayor's talking about.
And I understand where the mayor's coming from.
That makes a lot of sense what he's saying.
However, you've got the person that's taking over, Joshua Palmer, that's taking over codes enforcement, okay? We decided that we were going to give him at least a month to make sure that this was what he really wanted and that he was actually fitting it. It's been 2 weeks and he's out there kicking the weeds and taking, yes, okay? He loves it and he's really doing well at it, from what I'm being told, okay? Brandon knew nothing about it either, and he just hit the ground running when he got it. He's not getting paid anywhere near what the minimum is. Okay, he's getting paid $15 an hour, where the minimum is a lot higher, until he proves himself. Okay? And why not give somebody that is within the city already a chance to move somewhere forward?
Yeah, I agree with all
But I
that,
also
yeah.
agree that maybe I should have gone out and seen if there were better candidates, but I'm still going to say that I really believe that going internally, and if you get a candidate that's from internal, I had 2 applications. One of them I wouldn't have considered because he had absolutely no experience whatsoever other than being a cashier. So,
I just want to point out something. This is not about personalities.
No.
What we're discussing, I'm incorrect, correct me. But I think the mayor, I'm agreeing with him, is if we're going to set standards or guidelines, how do we make these guidelines fair to not only our internal workers, but to the people that would apply if we did accept applications from the outside? I mean, we don't have to accept applications from the outside. The state of Tennessee doesn't. They have internal promotions, but they specify that it is for internal promotional purposes only.
I didn't advertise. I advertised internally only.
Yeah.
And if I didn't have anybody that applied that was qualified or that I felt would fit that position, then I would have gone out and gotten somebody else.
And that's what a lot of times, that happens quite often in the state and other cities, Hendersonville, Gallatin, et cetera. But I'm concerned that perhaps these guidelines that we have here, maybe we need to tweak them a little bit.
What about putting in that language as well, because when I worked for the state many years ago, and we wanted to move up, then there was a time period where we had to meet the qualifications similar to what you're doing with
Which is
the
what I'm
interim,
doing here.
and then put in that, in these job descriptions, or even overall, that internally, we have the opportunity to give it to another employee, should they meet the requirements within 6 months, or a year, or whatever.
We could do that. I'm sorry if I apologize.
Put something like that overall.
And I'm used, and maybe it's me trying to create something that doesn't exist here that's causing me the problem in understanding where everybody's coming from. Because that is the practice, is, you look internally first. If you can absolutely find a candidate that's you think is gonna work, give them a chance to get the certifications or whatever qualifications they need. Records clerk next needs NCIC, and the other one, she's going, I believe, next week or the week after, to get all of her training and the testing done. And it's never been questioned, because once you go internally, and if you find a candidate, you don't even think about going externally. And that's just the practice. But most of those places all had a classification plan already, and that already in place. And this has never really actually happened here, so this is new, I guess, for everybody else, and for me too, because I'm trying to invent something that we have to have and make it make sense. So what you're saying is we should actually amend everything to show in every position classification that if internal candidates apply, because they always have preference. I don't care where you are and whether you go outside, they always have preference, and then you have to come up with a reason why you didn't hire them if they're an internal candidate.
Right.
And that's really hard to defend when you go into a court of law, and that's what I'm trying to prevent
Do
at
we
the
need-
same time.
Do we need to
If
require
I've got
veterans
this-
preference also as a city?
Yeah, we should.
So you're telling me that if the records clerk, it said all of the requirements that was required, and we had somebody from Public Works apply for that internally, we're gonna have a hard time saying you don't have the qualification?
No, that's a different, you're not apples to apples. A records
Okay.
clerk is a clerk,
A tax clerk,
okay? They take money, they do customer service, they have to take care of records, they have to take care of all kinds of other things.
but they don't have any of the qualifications that's in our classification.
But it's
None.
clerical, you can learn it. It's no different than a tax clerk. A tax
I
clerk
can
can
learn to
learn.
fly a plane, but I'm not a pilot.
I mean, clerical is clerical. It's no different than if I decided, or this board decided to allow me and Holly to actually have somebody to help us administratively. If I get a tax clerk that works here that does not have any of those types of experience for administrative assistant, am I going to ignore a tax clerk just because they're a tax clerk because I don't think they have the qualifications or the experience as an admin assistant? It's the same thing. It's clerical.
If you
She's
don't-
filing things, she's putting
If
things
you don't-
away, she's keeping track of
If you don't
records.
have a certification, you don't have a certification. Short and sweet and to the point. If you're missing a certification, it's just like a Tennessee's driver's license.
Why would-
If I don't have one and the police pull me over, I'm gonna get a ticket. I can sit there and tell them, I'll get one in the next 6 months, but they ain't gonna listen to me. It's the same thing.
No, it's not. I
No.
disagree. A clerk is a clerk.
Let me ask.
Maybe you can help.
Under the law, the city manager has employment powers,
Mhm.
okay, subject to your guidelines. And if those guidelines, which is basically what we're talking about, a classification and compensation plan that is a framework, and you have in there, because you're never going to get rid of the law giving her the discretion to hire whomever.
Yeah, that's not what I'm after.
Well, I know, but within those guidelines and and that's what you prefer for, well, that's just it, that's what you prefer. But you're not at the same time, under what's written on the paper as a policy, removing the discretion from her, which she already has. But you're stating to the world, this is what we would like to see, but it will be up to her to determine if abiding by the strict criteria is worth it when Jane Doe is sitting across the hall and she knows she can do the job. But you have declared to the world what you would like to see. I don't think it goes any further than that on what you're considering here, passing by way of resolution. It's not a matter of, well, if the certification isn't there, then why is it written in the first instance? Well, you're letting the world know what you would like to see. And most every city has got a plan like this, classification compensation plan, one kind or another, and there are exceptions every time. And it is within the discretion of your hirer that if somebody comes in absolutely unknown and doesn't leave a favorable impression, these give an objective reason for not hiring that person that should pass muster with the courts, because that's what you prefer. And this was an unproven individual, and you should be safe. Now, obviously, you can't give reasons on paper that are discriminatory, but these are criteria that you'd like to see, whatever they are. In some instances, a college education, in some instances not, whatever the job is. So I don't see anything contradictory from a legal standpoint of establishing a plan like this and at the same time reserving discretion to whomever has the authority. And in this instance, it's the city manager. I don't know if that makes any sense or not. But
Should these be minimum guidelines, minimum requirements? Should we have, like some of these said, as that the minimum training and experience for any candidate, internal or external, need
well,
to
you're
be such
limiting
and such?
yourself, and at the same time, I see it as a bit of a contradiction when you're limiting yourself, yet she has the hiring authority. I think the word that's apparently, and I went through them, it was quick, but what is preferred is the safety net.
Well, we're talking about, I've looked at the language preferred, is the term or related field preferred? Is that modifying fire service management, or is that modifying all the education?
Well,
All of the education.
Well, and therein where you may want to spend some time to clarify the language on some of these.
All right, well, I do not think that there is a preferred related field to graduating from a four-year college. Is there?
Depends on the circumstances, I guess. I mean, for
I mean,
what position?
No, it just says graduation from a four-year college. That's where the modification, this phrase is modifying that entire sentence. And I do not understand how there can be a related field for graduation from a four-year college.
You could have a degree in something else
Well,
that
I
is
mean,
very related, maybe medical,
Well, I mean, it's
or
not.
something like that, that's related to fire.
It's not requiring a four-year college degree in fire inspection. It's just that, you could be a journalist You know,
That's
my
something I've
understanding.
never understood either. What good would a 4-year history degree do you in police work?
You never know.
Okay.
That education
What would a
becomes
4-year
in-
degree in basketball even do you in recording, as a city recorder? That's what I'm saying. I'm pretty black and white. Either you require something of a position or you don't. I don't see how you could say, well, I require it from those 4, but because that one already works here, that one don't have to have any of it. I don't understand that.
Because you're not gonna be able to always get the exact position in a small city that the person is applying for within the city.
Well,
I mean, everybody here could have applied for any of those positions.
one of the things I noticed that the state does, like instead of having the training and experience of graduation from a 4-year college or university, what they say in their description and their minimum requirements, as they put it, is graduation from a 4-year college or university, or experience can be substituted for, I mean, they actually use that language. Experience can be substituted for years of university training, year per year. It actually says that.
And we can do that with all of these. That's not a problem. I mean,
And that would allow somebody in here internally that didn't have all these qualifications, but because they have the experience and are well-versed in this area, they can substitute that year of experience for that year of...
well, I understand both points. I really do. I really, really do. But I'm gonna use the tax clerk again, okay? In order to get a records clerk internally, you would have to have somebody else working in that department. We're a small city, we don't. Okay? Someone that has the smarts, the personality, okay, and a fast learner and willing to do it, should be given a chance.
Yeah,
And
I think
that's
of
all
us-
I'm
I think
saying.
every single one of us on this board agree exactly what
But,
you're saying, and
again,
it has nothing to do with personality.
No,
Once
it
again.
doesn't, I know. And just because she does not meet the criteria,
So let's...
because she doesn't have NCIC, because that has to be taught,
Right,
and the other, we're sending her for that.
yeah,
Okay, so then she will meet the criteria
yeah.
for the
And I-
essential duties of the job, because they have to have that in order to be able to look at police records.
Right.
That does not mean that she doesn't have the ability or the intelligence to be able to perform the rest of the duties.
Yeah.
And that's where I'm coming from. It should be a guideline, but not a set in gold word or whatever. set in
I
stone.
agree with what she said just then, but my only question is, I don't want to hire old Joe over here to do this right here when I never put an application out or to get any applications. I may have got someone that was already had all that training and do the job versus sending someone to do the training. That's like hiring a police officer that's never been a police officer. Then you send them through the school and all this right here. That costs you money. So if you put someone out for a tax clerk, then if you had applicants that come in that's been doing it, it's this tax clerk, been doing it for 5 years, you know, that should qualify them to do the job versus, this is a nice person, I feel like they can do the job.
No, and I agree with you, and
You know,
that's,
but if you never put the application, if you never ask for the application to be put in, you'll never have that.
but internal candidates always should have
But
first
if
preference.
you're gonna do that, then there's no need to ever put an application out there.
I disagree.
Well, what, some of what Milton's talking about, all right, let's take the 3 positions that are being changed around or swapped or filled or whatever how you want to describe them. You're taking a tax clerk and moving to a records clerk. You have to train the tax clerk to be a records clerk, correct? You're taking a codes enforcement officer to be a fire chief. You have
Well,
to.
he's also the assistant fire chief.
Right,
that's
but there's
precisely-
training involved in making him the fire chief. You're taking public works employee and making a codes enforcement officer. Again, there's training involved there. Because of those actions, when we hire a tax clerk, we're gonna have to train a tax clerk.
You may-
To our way of doing things.
No, if you have an applicant that's been doing it already. We don't have anybody here that's gonna go for a tax clerk. I will put it out
No,
internally, but I can tell you they're not
That's not
going
where I'm
to.
going, that's not where I'm going. If we put out applications for, searching for applications for a tax clerk, and we get one that's been a tax clerk for 20 years
Mhm.
that applies, we still got a trainer to do it our way.
Mhm.
If we fill the public works position, same thing. That person has to be trained. And if it weren't for one going to the other, it would be the same thing in the other position. You would be losing a person going here that has to be trained, and then when you fill that position, it would have to be trained. So our scenario now is, we have 3 positions that are changing. We've got to train all 3 of those positions, and then when we fill the 2 positions left open, we've got to train them. So now we're training 5 rather than 3.
If they had quit, we would be training all 5 as well.
If they would have quit.
If we didn't have somebody to fill the fire chief, if we didn't have somebody to fill the
Okay.
3 positions.
If Brandon, Michelle, and Josh had have quit,
Mhm.
and we'd have hired 3 people to take, we only training 3 people.
Oh, I see where you're coming from.
Now we're training 5.
No,
Sure we
you,
are.
if Brandon quit, that's 3 positions that are gone, plus you have 2 others open. So it's 5 people leave, you have to train 5 people.
Well, no, there wouldn't be 3 other open, because the tax clerk wouldn't have quit, and the public works person wouldn't have quit. They just got moved.
I
There
understand
would
where
only
you're
be
coming
3
from.
spots.
Well, I was thinking if they all quit, you'd have to train all 5
Well, if you
anyway.
have one quit, no matter which one it was, you put out qualifications, and they would have to meet these qualifications to apply, and then you look at it, and whoever had the best qualifications would get the job.
But if they don't have the
I
qualifications,
don't.
then it would be my discretion to hire the best candidate. But even so, they still have to be trained.
And I don't have a problem with you hiring anybody. I don't have a problem with you hiring any of the ones that you've hired to put them in the positions that they hired. All I'm saying is, they don't fit these classifications.
Maybe those classifications are too high a standard.
They are high. I know when MTS did them, they did them quite high. They are high, because we are looking for professionals. Look at the.
Which makes perfect sense.
Okay, Holly, I'm putting you out of this completely, okay? Because you've been here so long that you know how to do things inside out and backwards. The same thing goes for Deborah, okay? They know inside out and backwards, all right? But we want professional people that are going to take over the jobs in the future when Amy leaves. Okay, we can't count on Amy, Tess, the tax clerk, everybody being here, the lieutenants, okay?
Oh, I agree with that.
The sergeants, that kind of thing. And especially if she leaves, okay? There is no one that's employed here right now, currently, okay, that can take her place.
Well, I disagree with that.
There is nobody that I can train to take her place.
Anybody can be trained.
No way.
Sure.
They're gonna have knowledge and education in order to take her place and be a professional. That's the key, the professional, okay? There's a difference. She doesn't do what she does without being a professional. You need somebody that's gonna be able to do HR, risk management. You're gonna need somebody who's gone to college and understands how to do that. She learned through the years, okay?
So you're
So
saying
her
she's the only one that could ever learn without going to college?
So her experience can,
Can substitute and offset the
Offset the
college.
college.
So if
But-
you had somebody apply that had 20 years' experience, they wasn't a graduate from college.
They
wouldn't-
would fit the criteria because of the
Well, that's what I'm
experience.
saying.
She's saying someone here now, like Deborah couldn't because Deborah don't have accounting experience. That's what she's saying. If anyone
Amy
employed
can't.
now
Anyone that
has
works
no
here
accounting.
currently
Right.
could not take her
Okay,
place.
and I agree with that.
That's what
agree
I was
with
That's what
saying.
she said, yeah.
Have you always had your degrees in your schooling in all the accounting that you do since you started here?
No, I learned from. I
You
learned
got 'em
on
as
my
you went
own.
along.
Mhm. I learned from,
So that's what I'm saying.
yeah.
I understand what you're saying, okay, but for a position like that, that is a professional position. That is not a simple accounting
Well, and
position.
it evolved over the years.
And evolved over the years.
Because when I first
exactly.
started, I've
Agreed.
always had accounting experience, but it was different when I came here. We were on QuickBooks. And so, but having the knowledge
And you
of journal
didn't have to
entries
do
and
the
stuff like.
HR and the
No.
risk management and
No.
all the,
The CMFO requirements, it was just,
Kick your bucket.
so it did evolve.
let me
So
do
that's-
an example here. And I'm gonna play devil's advocate somewhat. If we have an outsider that applied for the fire chief job, that met all these qualifications as set out in this job description, and we set that fella up, you have that fella or female, and Brandon. And Brandon does not meet all these qualifications. And you hire Brandon instead of this fellow. Does this fellow not have a right of action against the city
Well,
for not abiding by their own policies?
well, as any lawyer will say, it depends, because here's where it really gets complicated. If that person that's got all those qualifications is a minority, you've got a problem.
Okay, but what I'm saying
But
is,
if he's not, or she's not, you have to articulate a non-discriminatory reason, and really it's common sense.
Well,
You articulate a good reason why you're hiring.
while you're
this person.
hiring somebody that does not meet the qualifications that this board has passed as a policy, why is the city manager hiring somebody that does not meet the qualifications that set out in the policy over somebody that meets all the policies?
I think it's legal if it's not discriminatory. If the person is not in a protected class, it's part of the discretion that she has, or if you as a board had the hiring authority, that you would have. It's a decision you make. Is it going to be controversial? Very likely, under whatever circumstances. But only if the person with the higher qualifications is.
Well, I'm not saying that they have higher qualifications. I'm saying that they meet
Well,
the
higher
minimum
qualifications than the person thinking about bringing
They're
up.
meeting the qualifications as set out in policy and passed by this board, whereas the city manager has agreed to hire somebody else internally, which is fine with me, and I like the idea of promoting from within helps morale and it's good management. Let me just say that. But in setting this criteria as our policy and hiring somebody that doesn't meet these criteria, when there's a candidate that does meet them, I see that as, you're going to be sued. Now, whether they prevail or not is another question. If they're a minority, you're saying they'll prevail. But what I'm saying here is that what I've noticed from the state, and I go back to there because I used to have to hire and fire when I was working at the state. One of the things that our policy said was, here are the criteria, here's what can be substituted, here's what can be done, and it allows, for example, special agent 2 within the ABC need to have 5 years of experience as a special agent 1, or equivalent at another, law enforcement agency, or something like that, or the equivalent of something. I mean, and you can go online and see those qualifications and what's required.
But that criteria is there.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. It's there. It's spelled out so that anybody and everybody can see it. So when somebody that's applying for fire chief looks at that, they realize, okay, I meet all these qualifications, but here's these other areas where these qualifications can be substituted. And as such, there may be other candidates that are equally being considered, even though they don't have my 4 years of college or whatever, because they have so much greater experience than I do that they can substitute year per year. I think we need to look at it that way, and that way you're not diminishing the requirement for this policy, and in my opinion, you're not opening up a situation where there could be a candidate that would sue us, minority or female or whatever, or Anglo, as far as that's concerned. But the concern I have, and I see where the mayor's coming from, and I'm starting to understand where you're coming from.
Yeah, I do too.
I think we need to start looking at that, or look at it that way, because and it still keeps you, it gives you the you can discriminate, that's a bad word.
Discretion.
Discretion. You can use your discretion in making these decisions. And that way, everybody's on a level playing field, and there's no question.
Well, to answer the question that somebody asked about veterans, they're protected class too, so.
Well, here's one that we recently hired a police chief. And if you go strictly by this, there's no way you could hire Mark.
By looking at his
impossible.
experience, so
Yeah.
experience
It says right here.
substituted.
Let's put that in there. Let's
And
put
exactly,
experience.
so if it's in there, I
Well,
got
this,
you.
training and experience, graduation from an accredited post-secondary college or university with a bachelor's degree in criminal justice or related field. 10 years experience, everything else he meets, but he doesn't meet that one. And it doesn't say preferred anywhere in that paragraph.
Yeah.
So how could, do you see
You're
what I'm
right,
saying?
you're right.
If you pass this, you ain't going by what the board's passing.
It needs to say that.
Yeah, it needs to say what we're going to do.
So we need to, basically what I need to do is go through these again and adjust them for either preferred or just experience may be substituted for education.
Take a look at.
I know there's exact
Yeah.
verbiage.
Well, the preferred is the only one that's gonna work for me, because the experience one, I don't know how going back to the tax clerk, she may be an experienced tax clerk. She has no experience in records. And in the type of records we're talking about, it ain't just filing document records, it's dealing with police records, fire records, sex offender records, and all that other stuff that the police department deals with. And a tax clerk never deals with any of that, is what I'm saying.
And unless you got somebody who's got NCIC background or,
We had,
anybody like that, that's done it before, you're never gonna have
there
it.
was only 3 people that could go into the NCIC room. That one of them was me, and we had, and did I ever go into it after the training? No, I did not. But we had an assistant administrative assistant, and our chief law enforcement officer did NCIC. And I don't think I ever went into the room. But
Would your access to NCIC have been monitored and recorded?
yeah, it would have been. Everybody's access to NCIC is monitored. You go in with special passwords, code words.
Well, and that's why most police departments have their dispatchers do the NCIC, and the officers aren't allowed to
Yeah,
go
you know,
anywhere
well,
near
because
it.
there
Most
has
of
been
your dispatchers
some,
have that experience to go in there and do that, we're liable.
some people that lose their jobs, some officers that had access to NCIC that abused it.
Yeah, there's, if we was running that back here in the dispatch, and dispatchers back here, and whether it be me or any city employee, they're not supposed to be in there when she's working on that.
I can only go in if I, got, classification to go in. I couldn't go in
Right,
until
but
I
I'm just
got it.
saying here, even in this
Yeah.
small city, if we had a dispatcher back there,
Oh, you can't.
the doors are not locked. But
Well, ours were.
just everybody can't go in there when she's got that computer on.
Okay, we had a special room set aside that was locked with only I didn't even have, actually, I had the code written down somewhere on a piece of paper in case I ever needed it, and I knew where that piece of paper was at, but the chief law enforcement officer and his assistant was the only two that had access to it.
All right, now, getting away from this classification and getting to the pay classification ranges. I want to make sure I'm correct. The three gray ones are the three positions that just changed, correct?
Correct.
Based on that, one is 10% under, one is 21% under, and one's 4% under?
Yes. That also relates to experience too.
Okay. When they get the classifications or the certifications or schooling, whether it be in 3 months, 6 months, or whatever, what will happen to their number?
I will try to bring it as close as I can to the lowest step one, but that does not mean that that's what they're getting. The 21 or the 10% or the 4%.
So is it, what's down here in the yellow is below base, minimum 5%?
5% increase
So
annually.
the very most that codes enforcement, best case scenario would get to 16, minus 16%.
Yeah, sorry.
And the records clerk could erase the whole number. So based on this, it would take at least 5 years for codes enforcement to get to step one.
Hurt near because of his lack of experience.
2
and what I
years.
hired him with. Well, and I'm not sure that this is correct. 31 to $15 an hour is, yeah, it's about 31 to, okay, yeah.
And again, I don't like discussing people's pay in these meetings, but that's the only place we've got to discuss
I
it.
know it's public record anyway.
These three positions, what was their increase percentage-wise when they moved from the position they were in to the position that they're in now?
Records clerk got $1 increase. And the codes enforcement officer got a $3 or $4 increase from what he was. $4 increase. And the fire chief, got a $5 increase. Round figures.
Okay, now, roughly what percentage would that be? If the fire chief, from the position that he was in,
You have a calculator?
was raised $5, that would be somewhere in the neighborhood of 20 to 30%, it'd have to be.
Was the fire chief previously the assistant fire chief, is that correct?
Yeah,
So take, fire chief, take 26,
No,
six.
no, 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 no.
but
was
he
the
wasn't paid though.
He was the codes enforcement officer.
No, that's right, I'm sorry.
He's codes enforcement officer. So he went from 1896 to
2404.
2664,
No, 2404.
2404.
I can tell you right now, there's gonna be some people mad at me.
No,
Oh, yes, they will.
I don't know what percentage that is, one from the other. I'd need a calculator to figure it out.
19%.
Thank you.
All right, and then the codes enforcement, if he was,
He was at 1150,
so that would be somewhere in the
and he went up to 15.
25 to 26%.
He went up to 15. He was at 1150 and went up to 15, so that's a $3.50 raise.
So that'd be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25%. It'd have to be.
See, and I have to totally disagree, because you're looking at one position, you're looking at the same individual, but you're looking at one position versus a totally different position.
With no training in the position
But-
they're going to.
And they
None.
are, but they are currently way below what the pay grade is
They was currently
to
way
get
below
the
before.
experience to meet the guidelines of that position. So the percentages there have absolutely nothing to do with going from what Public Works to, you're saying codes. That's two totally, you can't even compare that. Yeah, to me, you cannot even compare that. That's two totally different positions.
So you're taking somebody in public works
Totally
that
different,
has
totally
no,
different
wait
job.
a minute, that has no knowledge of codes enforcement, none whatsoever, and moving him into codes enforcement and justifying a 25% pay increase
It's totally different.
with no training.
We did exactly the same thing with Brandon
Totally different.
when we moved him into codes enforcement full-time.
Mhm.
He had absolutely no experience.
Where was he at before?
He was a volunteer firefighter and he worked for EMS.
Mhm. Totally
But
different.
you didn't raise him from one position in this city to another. What I'm saying is, you have an individual, and take the names out of it, you have an individual making $11 an hour today. Wait a minute, $11 today for his 40-hour work week. Moved him to a position that he has no more qualifications for than he did yesterday. And he gets a 25% raise for nothing more than he just moved from here to here.
But the job description and the job
When he's qualified.
requirements are higher than what he had in
Correct.
Public
But he
Works.
don't meet the requirements.
But the job that he is being required to do requires a higher rate of pay,
Yes.
If you have the requirements.
regardless.
No,
Mr. Mayor, all due respect, I agree with Bonnie on this.
well, that's fine. I mean,
But
I-
when I was in public work, that's how it worked. Even though I didn't know that about the job, it was promotion. What's wrong with having the employees in
There
the
is
city
absolutely
have
nothing
a
wrong.
promotion and pick up the base pay of that job they're promoted to?
And
Whether
they're
it
not
be
even getting that.
15% or 25
And,
or
and,
30%.
and they're not being paid for the current requirements of that job. What they're doing is they're hiring him at a lower rate of what that position allows as far as pay.
That's right.
And then once they get that certification, then they are being not even moved up to the lowest part of that pay grade, because they're
Okay.
capped at that 5%.
So you got one
And
employee,
so,
you got one employee that gets a 25% pay increase now,
No, it's not.
Yeah, yeah, it is. I mean,
It's-
bottom line on his check, it's gonna be
It's-
25% more.
It's like, in other words, though, he's going from one position to a totally different position.
With no more school.
But is he qualified for that new position? If he doesn't meet the policies that have been set out by
It's
this board?
still-
Okay,
it's-
Code enforcement officer, let's look at the description before we go any further.
I mean,
It's totally
I-
different. Even when I worked for the corporation that I did, going from one position to another position, there was 2 different pay scales for that.
Exactly, if
And-
it's a lateral, you stay the same.
Exactly, and even though, I mean, you know, they were looking at promoting me to another position that paid a whole lot more money, whole lot more money.
Do you have any more?
However, but my experience was from the lower position, even though I didn't have the current qualification certifications for this higher one, they brought me in.
But your experience was interchangeable with the requirements of the new position.
There's
absolutely
nothing
in
public works that relates to code enforcement.
But my point is that what you're not looking at is that the experience is, can that individual, in what she's looking at, can that individual do this job?
Right. Yeah.
Okay? From what his current work ethics, his knowledge, his basis of his ability of being able to perform this job.
His
In
knowledge.
her opinion. And her opinion is, yes, that they can perform this, and that they feel like they can get the certifications that they need in order to do that job. And even in corporations and businesses that I've done before, I do not have a college education. I don't. But based on my performance on what I did here, they felt that I was more than qualified to move here.
Your experience was substituted for the college education.
Bingo. And
Okay.
from what I had past performance in this position, they felt that I was qualified, based on the performance here, that I could do this job even though I was not certified to do it.
Same,
Mr. Mayor,
same background though.
Mr. Mayor, if these sheets of policy that we've been looking at, if they were to be changed to reflect the experience, the substitution of experience for college and other things such as that, is that something that is more acceptable to you?
Yeah, I don't have a problem. All I'm saying is,
That these standards are much higher and that we're probably hiring people into positions where we have a policy set out that has a higher threshold than what these people are qualified for. Is that what you're saying?
no, what I'm saying is, Public Works does not,
They don't have
a Public Works
crossover.
employee does not
Have
train
crossover.
you to be a codes enforcement
I
officer.
agree.
So moving a Public Works person to codes, just because you moved his name from this nameplate to that nameplate does not automatically make him worth what that job pays.
Now,
He's
is
no
there-
more knowledgeable than he
No,
was
I
yesterday.
don't agree.
I don't
I
agree.
don't
I don't
agree.
agree, Mayor, I'm sorry, I don't agree.
Does he have,
So if you worked in baggage, if they'd have bumped you
A
up-
little more complicated than that.
okay, but you worked in baggage.
Yeah.
Are you saying they could have bumped you up to pilot and you could have flew the plane the next day?
No, not what I'm saying, but the guy that worked beside me had 4 years of college education, and he was making the same money I was.
Yes, but you
But
both
with the
had
opportunity to
experience in
move
what you was
up
doing.
in the field of where I was at, I could have gone into another field. And if I was asked to do so by seniority or inner circle, we went inner circle first, and then it went outside, the senior seniority outside. But if I went into that, I picked up that pay that day. Where it was, I may have been making $25 an hour doing what I was doing. This job paid $35. I picked that pay up
Yeah.
But.
with no
did-
questions. Yeah,
but
it was it. No
Did
Did
questions.
the
the
job
job-
that you was in before you moved, did it prepare you for that other job?
No, it did not.
In no way.
Did not
There's
prepare.
nowhere-
I went from what was called police sergeant, I went into line control crew chief. And that was the highest paid job on the airport.
If I may,
sorry.
No, that's okay. That's
I ain't
okay.
been talking a whole lot.
So in other words, you got OJT on the job training.
I went right
Yeah.
into it, I
Yeah.
went right straight to it, and the other crew chiefs there training me to do that job, then they left and I had it
Yep.
completely. I
But
had
they
no
bid
work-
by,
work-
but the
instead
job
of
was
working-
bid by seniority. You bid the job by
I
seniority.
bid that one by seniority.
Okay.
But
But all,
one day I went from regular pay to crew chief pay, which was an improvement in pay.
But you stayed in the airline industry. You didn't go from sewer to codes enforcement.
Okay, I think that they must have good verbal and written communication skills. The person that I have decided to hire has that. Must be able to perform multiple tasks. He has that. Excellent interpersonal and customer service skills. He has that. Ability to work independently and with a group. He has that. Excellent mathematical aptitude. I'm not 100% sure, but he sure as heck knows how to use a calculator. Attention to detail. I've seen him in the field. I know what he's like. Very detailed. Ability to exercise good judgment in evaluating situations and making decisions. I believe he's young, but he does. I've seen him in the field. Again, those are qualities that you see in workmanship. Whether you are digging up a sewer or changing a flap, it doesn't matter. Ability to establish and maintain effective working relations with other employees and the general public. He meets that criteria. Knowledge of principles and practices related to municipal code and zoning enforcement. He knows part of that. Okay, he does abatements for us. He knows what he has to do when he does the abatements and the paperwork that goes into it. Okay, so he has been exposed to that. Ability to pass reasonable fitness and physical standards and safely perform work. If required, as determined by a city physician, vision, hearing, all of those things are just general stuff. The work environment is clear. Training, high school diploma or GED. He's got his high school diploma. A valid driver's license appropriate to the assignment and good driving record are required. He has that. The ability to obtain state of Tennessee building inspector certification, so on and so on and so on, as far as a building official is concerned within 1 year of employment. There's no reason why he can't. 1 to 3 years experience as an inspector or related experience is preferred. Yes, he worked in sewer, but this gentleman meets the skills and criteria that are necessary. The rest can be learned.
I have no doubt in anything you just
I
said.
agree with that.
I just want the public to hear it.
Well, I just don't, this is the part I don't understand. You come in today making $11 an hour. You go home making $4 more an hour.
Because
With
your
no
job
more
is,
knowledge.
your job is a different pay grade scale.
Okay, then let's go to a different one. Let's go to the assistant fire chief, because we've never had that classification until now. Correct?
No, we have not. Yes and no. We had the classification of fire lieutenant. The fire lieutenant classification is exactly the same as an assistant fire chief. The only difference between one and the other is when they get on scene, the assistant fire chief is second in command, where not the lieutenant was.
Okay.
That's the only difference.
When the person was moved from lieutenant to assistant chief, what was the pay increase from going from one to the other?
$2, I think.
What more knowledge is required to do one than the other?
The pay grade, I was trying
I
to...
know what the pay grade said, I'm saying what knowledge.
Okay, there is no additional knowledge other than being able to be second in command, but he was already below number one, step one. I have been trying to bring that person up for the past 2 years, slowly but surely, and I was able to bring him up by doing this because it's not costing us any more money in the budget. And he deserves it. And this is not a personality thing.
I'm
It's
not
just,
saying that anybody that gets a raise doesn't deserve it. That's not where I'm at all. I'm for everybody getting a raise.
and that was, before I ever made that decision, I looked at the position descriptions, and I called MTAS to make sure that I was looking at things correctly. And then discussed it with Thomas. And the only difference between a lieutenant and an assistant chief is the fact that they are number 2 on the scene, where now a lieutenant couldn't be. He does all the ordering, he's an active lieutenant. And he's been an active assistant chief all along, but never gotten paid for it. Our assistant chief was Brandon, and he was voluntary. And that was just for when he got on scene, that was the assistant chief. When Thomas was out, Mark took over. Mark was in charge. Mark did everything, not Brandon. You know, Mark was hired at $11 an hour as a firefighter when he was an actual lieutenant. When we did this study, he should have been paid $17.96 an hour. And we've been trying to bring him up to where he needs to be.
I agree, over a period of time.
Over a period of time, and it's been 3 years.
25% pay increases is, I have no way to justify that to Mr. Citizen out here.
It's been 3 years that we have been putting him and bringing him up the same as
Well, I
everybody
agree.
else.
But
And
if
we
he
finally
all
reached
of a
it.
sudden got $2 an hour from going to whatever his classification was to assistant fire chief, that's more than 2 or 3%. It's got to be at least 10%. It would have to be.
Who was assistant fire chief? Mark Lloyd or Brandon?
Brandon was
Brandon
assistant
was.
fire chief as a volunteer. Okay. Mark was hired in by the previous administration as a firefighter, full-time. Mark has been a lieutenant ever since then, okay? And doing the job of assistant fire chief. The only thing was that he was not second in command when he was on scene.
The second in command doesn't matter on a volunteer fire department.
You
Because
know,
if none of the officers are there, the lowest fireman you've got, if he's there, he's in command.
well, I understand the first one there is in command. I
Well, no,
know,
I'm
but
just
when- for
saying,
fire decisions-
anybody can be in command. I mean, there's numerous times that the fire chief would not be there. You have a call, and whoever is there running the scene, the fire chief gets there, and Thomas is famous for saying this. If he gets there and everything's working right, he don't just assume command because he's the fire chief. If somebody's doing the job and doing it right, he steps back
Right,
and watches and
and I
helps out
understand.
where he's needed. So, I'm just saying, I'm trying to justify,
He has been doing the job for the past 3 years of an assistant fire chief and not being compensated for it, is exactly what I'm saying.
okay, and you said 3 years ago he made $11 an hour, correct?
No, it was $11 an hour a few years before I got here.
Okay, and he's up to what, close to 20 now?
No, he's not. He's up to, I believe, 19.
Well, that's close to 20. So, in a matter of 4 or 5 years, almost a 50% pay increase.
There were 2 people that this commission asked me to bring up at a faster rate when we got the study, and he was one of them. And that's what we have done in the past 2 years, is bringing
agree.
him up quicker than the others.
I agree 100%, but what I'm saying is, before he got this $2, he'd still, over a course of 3 or 4 years, his pay had increased 35 to 40%.
I don't go by percentages, I go by dollars. And I'm sorry, but that's not the
Well, it's
way
the
I
same
think.
thing. It's the same
I'm
thing.
sorry, it's just not the way
All
I
right,
think.
in the past 3 or 4 years, his salary had went up, or his pay had went up $6 an hour. And just by going from firefighter to assistant chief, it's going up another $2 an hour. And when budget time comes around, if he's not at his step one, it may go up again.
No, he's above step one now.
That's all I'm saying. I'm all for everybody making what they can make,
I know that.
but it's gotta be done fairly.
With all due respect, I've only followed this commission's desire when it comes down to his salary. And I have brought it to you every year within the budget. And in this case, by bringing Brandon in at a lower rate, I was able to bring him up to where he should be and not cost the city any more money in this budget.
But what happens when Brandon reaches his certifications and he has to have that 15% pay increase?
He's not gonna get a 15% increase.
Okay.
And he knows that. It's whatever we can afford. And it's gonna take him 6 months, and at least that brings us into the next budget year to begin with.
Okay.
And that's still, there is another problem there. If we're looking at the fire chief at this point, the minimum on the fire chief, if we hired in someone else with all the qualifications, not even knowing if they would fulfill the position, because anytime you hire someone, I mean, we've had it in the past, we've hired an employee and they ended up not working out for the city. But at $55,000 here for the minimum for step one, the beauty of this is that we're hiring someone within the city who loves this city, who works hard for this city, who we've known in the past what their background is and how they have worked so well with the city to be promoted, that wants to do the job, that wants to get their certifications, paying at a lower rate. I just think it's a win-win-win for everybody. It's a win for the employee, it's a win for the city. It helps promote positive attitudes because they know that they can be promoted from within and move up within the city. We know their work ethics. We know what they're going to do, and we're hiring them in at a lower rate compared to if we hired someone from the outside.
I can honestly
To
say.
me, it's outstanding.
I can
I agree
honestly
with that.
say that, and I don't know if the police chief is still here, but
No, they had a call.
every single person that has been given an opportunity to move within our organization has done so because they love the city and they really love their job and their commitment to us, not because of the money. Our lieutenant took on his lieutenant position because it was necessary within the department to get that rank and file settled, and he knew I couldn't pay him. You've got a sergeant that's doing the same thing right now, and a corporal within your police department that are underpaid because they chose to take that responsibility. And Brandon is aware that he will not be reaching his minimum right away, and he took the position anyway because of his loyalty to the city. And that's what promoting from within to me means, is giving people a chance and a shot.
I agree, and it will help the morale in certain areas, but it's gonna kill the morale in other areas. When everybody finds out that 3, 4, 5 people in this city got anywhere from a 15 to a 25 or 26% raise, and they end up getting 2, they're gonna be mad.
They're
Well, I
at
still
the base or above.
I still have to make the statement, though,
They're
in
separate
any
positions.
other corporation or business or even other government entities, if they move to a totally different position, there is a pay grade for that that is totally separate, whatever that may be. And so regardless of, and I know what you're saying with the percentages and all that, and you're saying that from that type position about them being raised is huge in what you're looking at, but when you look at other corporations, again, government, state entities, whatever it might be, when you go from one position to a different position, there is a totally different pay grade.
If you're
Period.
qualified for that position, I agree.
Not even in that, not in the corporation that I was before, you're not
That's private.
necessarily. Even being private, even being the state, I went and took tests back in the state, and as long as I passed a certain test, then and I went to a totally different position, there was a pay grade, and it didn't matter what I was making here, so long as that I
But again,
performed.
you had to pass a test or
Yeah.
something.
Well, we had
You
to
don't
pass
have
a
to pass
test,
nothing.
but
You
But
come
our
in as a
city
civil
manager-
worker, and then all of a sudden you're a codes director, a codes enforcement officer,
but
with no training in between.
But-
You come in as a tax clerk today, and you go home as a records.
And what we have done is we have taken employees that our city manager, that we feel is qualified to do her position, feels like that these employees can take on this position that's in a totally different pay grade, making less money than if we hire from the outside, do a fantastic job for our city in that position. If she feels like in 6 months that that person cannot provide that type work for that position, I guarantee you they will be terminated.
Do they have?
I have no doubt.
Does our policy have a probationary period for new employees? What is it, 1 year?
It depends on the position.
Well, so,
But I
It's
have
a
no doubt.
90-day
It's
probationary
just
They
period.
do all
when.
of them.
what you're saying is, this person comes in at this job scale and then makes 20% more because he's doing this job set now with no further training. Well, why couldn't this person come in and do this job at that price until they justify paying them what this job pays? You're just assuming that this person that has this set of skills can
Because-
automatically do this job that takes a whole different set of
Because our
skills.
city manager, I feel very confident that our city manager can take that
I
knowledge
have that
and give her-
confidence too.
and that she can say that this person here, I feel, can do many of the job qualifications of this job. They just need a couple of certifications to get where they need to be. I feel very confident that she knows what that difference is, or we don't need to have her as our city manager.
I agree, but,
Should those
but it
ones-
don't fit these classifications.
Yeah.
But that's what I'm saying, then what we need to do is change these classifications to give her the permission to be able to fill who she feels is best suited. She just read off from Public Works to that other position, the qualifications that he does meet within what's
Okay.
stated. So she is filling that.
Okay, then where's Mark's bachelor's degree for police chief?
He has 20 years of
Don't
experience
say
that
anything,
substitutes
it does
for
not,
it.
no, it does
And
not
I
say
understand
anything
it
about
doesn't say
preferred in
that.
there.
But she's gonna go back and correct all
We
of
will
those.
fix that.
That she's gonna go back and correct every one of those, because we just
That's
talked
what I'm
about
saying,
putting
we're a
preferred,
city of,
preferred.
of doing something and then getting the paperwork straight, rather than getting the paperwork straight and then doing something. Get the paperwork straight and then do something. Don't do something and then mess with the paperwork.
Can we go ahead and put this on another next month's work session with the revisions that you're talking about, that you're contemplating?
That's fine with me. I mean, again, I will apologize, and I understand your frustration. I'm creating something that this city has never had.
That's the
And
whole
I
problem.
am dealing with an issue that has been common knowledge.
20 years in the making, and we're trying to solve it, but let's just take our time in doing it.
And that's fine.
Yeah.
That's fine. I'm okay with it. And I understand the frustration. It's just, it's common knowledge and common practice in all industries, not just public industries and private industries, that internal candidates get preference,
Let's put that
minorities
common
get
knowledge in
preference,
writing.
and we'll put it in writing, and then that'll solve it.
But isn't that what we're doing here, though, if the work session is going over that, that's what we're discussing
Yeah,
now,
that's,
to
and
correct
that's,
this
that's
stuff.
the
That's
decision
what this
that
is
we've
about.
made, yeah, but we still have to have the
we've gotta fix
physical
it.
paper.
How can we vote on it before we
You
fix it?
can't, it'll
We
be
can't,
tabled.
if that's what we're doing here. That's why we're having the work session discussing it now, so that we can fix this, you know, because it does not need to be voted for. That's why we're doing this today.
I do have a question. In 6 months, if those employees don't work out in those positions, and we've already filled these other positions, what happens with the employees?
The employees know that if they don't work out after
They're
their
no
90
longer
days,
employed with the
they're
city.
no longer employed with
They
the city.
lose all their
The
positions.
question I have too is if a certain position requires particular certifications, would it not be incumbent upon the city to provide salary incentives for meeting those? In other words, all right, we're not going to, like the mayor said, we're not going to take you from exactly $11 to $25 at this position. We'll
Which is
give
what we've
you-
done.
We'll give you a few extra dollars, and if you meet this certification, we'll give you a few extra dollars more in this one. And then, once you meet all the certifications that are required of this position, then you can, and you have to meet them within a certain period of time, within the probationary period of time. And that's what I have seen in the world. And I think the mayor pointed out something, is the fact that, yeah, you know, private industry does it differently, but we are, like the mayor has said before, stewards of the taxpayers' money, and we do need to look at this very carefully.
I mean, it's the exact same thing as our code book. I've been saying for 3 years that we need to fix that darn code book. And in 3 years, we've done very little for that code book. And we struggle,
More than we have.
we struggle, every time something comes in, it's always a struggle within that code book. We have issues that come up all the time. I talk to Michael all the time. It's chaos at best. And we deal with them on a as-have-to basis.
I will once again apologize because I am creating a document that hasn't existed here. And I'm also doing something that's completely different than what I am used to. Position descriptions were never taken to the elected body where I come from, okay?
How was they?
Those were
voted in?
handled, those were all handled as a position came up. The manager would go and ask for the position, but the position descriptions were all up to HR. And the only thing that that commission or council voted on was the compensation plan ranges. And then HR is the one that fit them in. So, this is new to me too, as far as having to have the position descriptions as part of the comprehensive plan for compensation, okay? And it wouldn't have come up if I hadn't seen that that was in the charter and it was required and we hadn't been doing it, and then seeing that the position classifications were in our personnel manual as well. This is why we're where we're at, okay? I knew that we had to get the compensation plan done. You guys approved it. I needed these position descriptions in order to be able to get that done. MTAS got them done for us. These have never had to go for approval by the governing body in anywhere I've ever worked at before. So this is new to me too. So let's fix them to make it the way it should be.
Sounds fine to me.
So is that gonna be tabled at number 3?
Yeah, we'll just go to another work session.
It'll go to another work session and we're not gonna vote on it tonight.
All right, discussion related to new development service fee schedule proposed.
Now, this is just, Michael and I have gone back and forth with the development services fee schedule that we adopted back in 2016. It's a little confusing to the reading. I agree with him. We put this together with me knowing what I'm trying to say, but not the public knowing what I'm trying to say, if that makes any sense. Some of them were really low, and Michael is going to be bringing a resolution to you at the next meeting for approval and vote on these new fees. So I just wanted you to look at them. A lot of them stayed the same, some of them went up. He also discussed it with our engineer because some of the engineering fees that we were charging weren't being absorbed by the customers, such as surveying and that kind of thing. So,
What about sign permits? Is that, it doesn't matter square footage? Does it include political signs?
no, political signs come under something else. You're allowed to put them out for a certain amount of
What about
time.
burn permits? I think most cities don't charge for a burn permit.
We charge $5.
Those permit fees are processed through the building department or the codes enforcement department. I'm primarily the.
Those haven't changed.
The first two categories.
Since when have we charged a burning permit fee?
Since y'all passed it in
It's been up to
2016.
that.
I'll pass it.
I done paid for it.
I didn't realize that. Most cities don't charge anything. It's primarily to make sure that the fire department is aware of who's burning and who's not burning.
And for the resident or the property owner to know the process of calling in the day of.
I mean, it's
the
not
proposed
excessive,
burn.
but I'm just wondering if any kind of fee sort of prevents people from coming up here and getting a burn permit.
$5.
Not that I'm aware of.
No, and some of the places, yeah, that could be.
You stop and think, if you're gonna, build a campfire, you gotta come get a permit for $5.
You don't have to have a permit for campfire.
I just like, one of the things we could, Michael, the ones that are changing,
Yes, sir.
what it is now versus what you're changing it to.
Okay, yeah, that's why I gave you the 2016 piece, so that you could compare and contrast. But if you want them put side by side,
Yeah,
I like
I can put a
side
quick
by side, what
spreadsheet
you get.
together for you so you can see, you
Yeah.
can compare
Okay.
the rates. Sure.
You know, what it is today, what you plan on going to do.
Certainly. And I'll be happy to explain each of these changes, whether it's an increase or a decrease.
Anybody? Personnel manual discussion, well, there's another good one. Probably talk for at least 2 hours on that one.
well, in my summary, I went ahead and put down what the department heads and the employees found. And basically, the nepotism policy, the fire department feels that it should not be valid relating to volunteer firemen.
I would agree to that.
So that's one of them. Moonlighting, the way it was put was either enforce it or don't have it. We do enforce it. I don't know why they got the information that we don't. We do.
How do we enforce it?
Anyone that has a second job has to be approved by me.
Okay.
And they can't work a second job, especially police officers, the same day that they're on duty here.
Okay.
Can a police officer work for the Sumner County or Roxbury County Sheriff's Department?
On their own time, as in whatever.
Yeah, when they're not working for the city?
I don't see why not, as
We-
long as they're not working for the city. Most of the police officers work.
ABC did not allow agents, special agents to work for other law enforcement agencies because of potential conflicts in arrest powers and the authority that goes along with that.
And I would have to probably defer to Rob if it ever happens, because
I don't think we have any.
we have any, we don't have any.
We had a strict policy because
I think most of the jobs that our police officers are involved in are private security
Mhm.
and stuff like that, directing traffic for construction crews.
we saw potential of one law enforcement agency personnel working for another law enforcement agency.
And I could see a conflict there too. I mean, like I said, I'd defer to Rob on that one.
And I know we addressed that in the past, that if you're a police officer, you can't use any of the city's equipment.
No, exactly.
In a after hours.
Does our liability follow them away from
No.
here? Okay.
Yeah, your officers work from home.
One used to, I don't know if they still do. Okay, call-out time, what should be paid. There's some, this is more of a policy decision for you guys. Right now, Public Works gets paid $2 per call
No,
when they're
2
called out.
hours.
I mean, 2
Minimum
hours.
2 hours.
I'm sorry. And, but other people, if they're called out, they don't get paid or whatever. So it's something that has to be clarified according to my department heads.
So you're saying that if a sewer call comes in at midnight and a sewer employee gets up and drives down here and does whatever they do, and it takes 30 minutes, we're paying them for 2 hours?
Correct.
I don't have a problem with that. If he gets up at midnight, that's pretty
Really?
cheap.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with that either. It's more of, for example, if one of our hourly employees winds up getting a call on a Saturday or a Sunday, like Deborah, it's happened to Deborah, hey, we can't get in here or whatever, and she just leaves and comes in and handles it, do we pay her call-out time?
Or police.
You know.
Detectives called out, same thing.
Well, detectives are
Police.
called out, what do we pay them for the call-out? Do we pay them per hour? Do we pay them a special call-out rate? That kind of thing. So that's more
It'd
of
be an
a,
hourly rate with maybe a.
that's my opinion, but
Yeah, we don't even have a policy on after-hours call.
I mean, if somebody
What
goes,
is detective rates in other cities?
I'm sorry?
What do other cities do on call out for detectives?
Oh, I have no idea.
well, I think it would have to be something similar to what the sewer department is. If you get a detective that's called out, let's say for a murder that ends up not being a murder and he's there for 30 minutes, I can't say that he shouldn't be paid for 2 hours. And if he comes in and it is a murder and he's there for 4 hours, then he's gonna be paid for 4 hours.
And
Yeah,
most of
but-
the time, they do actually end up going over the two, but the other one is our officers attending court. They have always gotten a 2-hour minimum. There is no policy about any of that. Does the time start when they leave their house? Does the time start when they check into court? There's no policy, so.
And that's something that's up to you all.
Well, we just need to figure it out.
What about, is comp time off the table?
Yes.
I've been on the table for quite a while.
Unless you guys order me otherwise, yes.
We've had that for a while.
Well, I read through the whole personnel manual. Other than those things, the little things like that, I don't necessarily see a problem.
We do need a travel policy. That I will agree.
Well, I'm
We
talking-
have one, but it's clear as mud. And Holly and I are constantly going back and forth, and half the time I forget what we agreed to the first time or the second time, so we need to,
If it's city business, you get paid for it.
that's not, okay, Holly, go ahead, throw it at them.
Yeah, but do you pay for lunch? Do you pay for lunch and do you pay for the meal? Does it start when you pay for travel time?
It doesn't pay for lunch unless you're held over for a night. In other words, if you're traveling from here to Cookville, and you would normally eat lunch anyway, you wouldn't pay for that. But if you're traveling from here to Cookville, and you're spending the night in Cookville, it pays for the travel time, it pays for that meal that evening, and the breakfast the following morning, and the lunch the next morning.
But what if we send you to Nashville and you attend a class? I mean, it's from 8 to 4, an hour for
You
lunch.
come back?
Do
But
we
you-
pay you?
It doesn't pay for lunch, no.
Do we pay for your meal?
No.
Okay,
I
so we
mean,
don't
it
pay.
pays for your travel time, yeah.
Correct, but
But
do we
not your
pay for
meal.
your meal?
No.
Do we
Yeah,
pay for your
you
lunch
would pay
hour?
for your meal.
Yes, you would.
No, you wouldn't.
You're representing the city outside of the city, therefore you would.
State doesn't pay for it.
I think it's only, some meals are only provided for an overnight stay.
It has to be an overnight stay
Right.
before meals provided.
Dinner is, yeah. Yeah,
Every,
that is very common.
every department within the state of Tennessee does it that way.
Yes, it is. I'm talking about. Well, I'm saying
But
yes.
the
And-
parking and the travel time,
Yeah,
yes, it's not.
but the other scenario is, let's say I'm gonna leave 2 hours early because, and it's a 30-minute drive, but I'm gonna leave 2 hours early in case I get stuck in traffic. but the class don't start for 3 hours. Do you pay me for the 3 hours when
Yeah.
it's only a 30-minute drive, but because
With
I got there
national
3
traffic-
hours early?
With national traffic,
Okay,
yes.
so if I get there 3 hours early, you're gonna pay me for 3 hours.
Yes, if you get there,
Yes.
if you
See, it's not just me, Holly.
If you're outside of your home, if you're not sitting at home, you know, and you're going there, taking class,
Yeah,
and especially with national traffic,
Right.
it's probably gonna take you 3 hours to get there, depending on, if it's in Madison, no.
Yeah, but if you leave 3
If
hours
it's in
early, and it don't take you 30 minutes to
Bellevue
get there,
or
you're gonna
somewhere like
deduct
that,
2.5.
No, that's what we're
That's
saying.
what I'm talking about. You got.
You're trying to avoid the traffic, so you're still representing the city.
I think that, I thought it was by MapQuest. I thought the state's policy states it's by MapQuest, the mileage.
Why don't you just say, all right, if
It's-
you're
it's
going to a
55.
class, you have X amount of time to get there.
So you're gonna give them 3 hours?
If you get there sooner, you get paid for it. If you don't, then so what? You missed
No,
20 or
no,
30
no,
minutes.
it-
That's what I just said.
Oh, you're talking about time on that.
Yes.
No, no. It-
Okay, it's actual.
Sometimes people go early in order to
Right.
mingle with people and
Yeah,
talk
yeah.
to other, you
Right.
know, city managers,
God only
whatever.
knows why.
I'm sorry, Mayor.
I don't wanna go early.
Wait, this is a good one. You go to a conference. Okay, conference lets out at 12. It takes you 3 hours to drive back. Are you expected to come back to work?
If you went to Gatlinburg, no.
But if you went to Murfreesboro, yeah.
Say there'd be you know, radius in which,
And are you, I mean, on a salaried employee, it doesn't really matter, but if you're an hourly employee, are you gonna make your hourly employee deduct 2 hours because you got back into the city limits at 3 o'clock, but you were supposed to work till 5?
no, they'll let them go home. They
Thank
better
you.
go home,
Are you gonna pay them for it?
yes.
Thank you.
Well,
But
there's,
no, I can't agree to that.
can't agree to what?
Thank you, Bonnie.
I don't either.
No, I don't
Agree to
agree.
Coming from, y'all driven from, well, I know you have. Have you
I'm
driven
in-
from
I'm-
Murfreesboro to Nashville?
I'm in Franklin all the time, I'm in Brentwood all the time, I know that traffic, yes. But I cannot agree that you have a 30-minute drive and you're gonna pay them for 3 hours
I don't know
to
of
get
any
there.
30-minute drives from here.
All I'm saying is,
Except
If
Kentucky.
if you use a certain app called Waze,
Yeah.
then you can detour around any traffic issues
Yeah.
that are in Nashville that can get you there sooner,
I have a
yes.
flip phone, I'm sorry.
Well, I know, but at the same time, I have to agree with Rob saying that if you,
Are we
if
gonna
you
pay
are
for their Waze
if you
app?
are away from 8 until 4 at a meeting or an event or something like that, then there is so much money that should be paid for their lunch. I have to say that as well, but as far as the travel, paying them 3 hours for a 30-minute drive, no.
No, that I agree with you
No.
on.
Why not just put a time limit on travel?
No.
Say you have an hour to get to your meetings. You're gonna lose on some of them, but you're gonna gain on others.
well, and that's
When you
kind of
come
what
to
we've
work-
been doing.
when you come
We
to
do the
work, Do you leave
MapQuest.
3 hours early to get there? You get paid for it?
No, but I'm talking about meetings or conferences only, not to and from work. We're talking about that.
we-
We're only
But if I
talking
had to drive car
This
car
isn't
down
on the
there.
table.
That's the travel policy.
I mean, I know it's
That's-
gonna
that's
take me
the
more than
issue that's
15 minutes to
going
get there,
on.
so I'm gonna allow myself time.
Okay,
It's
so
all
in other
business.
words, yeah, we need a travel policy, and that's
We need
obvious.
to clarify.
Yes.
That's clearer than the one we have. Okay, and the last one was the drug testing. The volunteer firemen feel, and Thomas is the one who brought this up, I have not spoken with the volunteers myself, that it is not fair. My policy is if you have an accident, drug test automatically, okay?
I agree.
Whether it's a minor fender bender or it's a full-blown accident
Well, I think
into a
it
brick wall.
depends. If a deer runs out in front of you, I don't think that anybody ought to have to go get drug tested.
Well,
Maybe
I
drug
understand.
test the deer, but
Well,
not the driver.
Do you drug test the volunteer firemen
Well-
for the hires?
Yes.
Okay, but here, at the same.
No, we
same
don't.
token,
No, we
here's-
don't.
Here's
Excuse
the
me.
thing.
Everybody should be drug tested.
Everybody, yeah, I think if you have any kind of fender bender or whatever, just for our public
Perception.
perception, yeah, that if you just make it across the thing, policy that they are drug tested no matter what for any accident, then there's no question whatsoever.
Well,
So-
that is the
Period.
way it is right
For
now.
no issue.
However, apparently, for example, if somebody, a police officer is driving down the road and somehow, or parked somewhere and is backing out and didn't really see where he was going, and something happened to one of the mirrors, that to me is considered an accident. I mean, if the mirror is knocked off, carelessness.
Well, if it's under a certain amount of damage.
You know, I mean,
If
it's,
it's like a popped headlight.
How are you
but-
gonna determine
Determine
what
the
that
amount,
amount is
exactly.
before the adjuster comes?
Let me
And
ask-
also, a
doesn't-
deer, is there, if a deer's not present and there's no sign of a deer, was it a deer?
Doesn't
Yeah,
all
but the cars that I've
law
seen hit
enforcement
deers
applicants
are
have to
pretty, the
investigate
deer's
about
dead.
DHB?
No,
The deer's not
Yes.
there.
no, not necessarily.
Most of the
As
time.
such,
The ones that
DHB
hit our place.
requires,
JR had one
drug
that
testing.
literally
I
jumped.
mean,
Well, the policy and my policy has always been, if there's an accident, I don't care, across the board, let's just do a drug test, let's cover, you know, CYA.
Yeah.
I work with the Madison Suburban Utility District, if those guys have any kind of an accident.
and if it's across the
Their
board,
drug
there's no
testing, but
favoritism.
they're also, all those employees, every employee is subject to random drug testing.
Well, and that's something that I want to discuss at another time. But what the volunteer fireman's problem is, or should I say what Thomas's problem was, is that if something happens on the scene, okay, and one of the apparatus is hit, or they hit something, or whatever, even if it's just a small dent, to me, that's an accident and carelessness if somebody's backing into something. Okay, they should be drug tested. Well, this volunteer fireman is only getting paid for the call, and he's got to wait, if it's in the middle of the night, maybe an hour or two for somebody to get there to do the drug test. How is that firefighter going to be compensated for that time waiting?
He's a volunteer. Short and simple, he's a volunteer. He knew it when he signed up.
Everyone should be drug tested regardless if it's an accident, if it's a fender bender, or if they total a car out. And they also should be drug tested before the city hires them.
He could go the next day to that place over on Belleville Pike.
You can't go the next day, you got to go right then.
We call them out in the middle, we call them, we've got
Well,
somebody
it
on
doesn't,
call.
it doesn't leave your system.
It
Yeah,
doesn't
but
matter,
there are
that's the
chemicals you
problem.
can take that
Yes.
that it won't
Sure
show.
is, it's out there now.
Yeah. They cannot leave the scene until.
They also do the alcohol
Basically, they know all
test
this
too.
kind of stuff about
Bring
how-
I mean, construction, I know all
Well,
about
if the
that.
fireman doesn't
Yeah,
fall,
you're
you're he falls off that
I
ladder.
did not know that.
He's, oh, I just slipped, it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't
It's
drug
an
test
accident
him
too.
or alcohol test him, then
Yeah.
later on he
That's
come back, well, I broke my
my
leg,
point.
you know.
If,
There's
can you
a-
not just put some kind of policy then, if they have to wait to be drug tested, that you pay them
Another call
another
out.
call, another
So
call out
you're
for
gonna,
waiting?
what if the results come back positive? You gonna pay him for being
Well,
on drugs?
No, if the results come back positive, he's fired.
He's
Well,
fired,
He
yeah.
ain't hired, he's
He
volunteer.
volunteered.
Well,
But he
he's
still
gone.
is terminated as far as a volunteer, he'd have to be, if he's had, taking
We,
drugs and he's
we
on the
pay him
scene.
That's
call
what I'm
out
saying.
on negative,
He'd be terminated.
negative responses. or
I mean, that was my
negative
suggestion, but that didn't sit
They
well
all
with
are
Thomas
supposed
either,
to
so-
sign the personnel manual, correct?
Mhm,
They're supposed to get a copy, read it, and sign it.
correct,
They know what's in it.
correct.
Even if they didn't read it, they signed that they know
They're
what's in it.
supposed to, Holly, do they?
I don't keep files on volunteer firemen. I have no idea.
Uh-oh.
Does the fire chief
They can
keep
be-
files
The
on?
fire chief probably does, I
They can be
don't.
taken off your list, can't
Hmm?
they? They can be taken off the list.
Off of what list?
Boy, I mean, can I just walk in and say I'm gonna volunteer to fight this fire?
No, you have to be a member of the fire department. They're not just gonna let you walk up on the scene and start fighting fire.
I understand, but so then I've got that training or whatever it is to be a volunteer.
You would have to be on the department. They're not gonna let somebody just, that's not on the department, say, hey, I'm gonna lend a hand,
No, I understand
fight the
that.
fire.
But somebody said you can't fire a volunteer fireman?
Terminate
You
them.
can't fire him because you never hired him.
No, they're
Well,
technically,
yeah, you're
They're
hired as a
volunteers.
volunteer fireman.
they're hired as
They're hired.
volunteers.
They ain't hired.
Because they're paid.
They're being paid
They got
$15.
insurance
They are
coverage.
compensated for their expenses.
Yes.
But they also.
But they
They're
are not an
employees.
employee.
They
They're
have
not
a work
employees.
policy.
They're covered under the work
Workman's
comp.
comp.
and they,
Yeah.
yes.
You
Can't
can
the fire
terminate
chief-
the volunteer.
Can't the
Yes.
fire chief say, don't ever call Wheeler again?
Yeah.
He's not to appear at a fire.
Yes, he can.
Sure can.
Yeah. You can terminate him. You
Or
can take him off the
or
list.
Oh,
you
yeah,
fell off
you can
that
kick him
ladder.
off the department, but you're not firing him because you never heard him.
Well,
He also don't have to show up to ever at a call.
Right.
Yeah.
There's nothing that says he has to come,
Right.
and there's nothing that says you can tell him not to come.
But in other words, but still, the bottom line is, whether you call it fired, terminated, removed from the list or whatever, if they come up positive for drugs, they're out.
That's automatic, but they still should be, they
Period.
should be.
Yeah, but
drug
what I'm
tested to
saying
begin
is,
with.
they all signed the personnel manual, and it says if you have an accident, you will be drug tested. They're agreeing to it up front without being paid.
That's right. They're charged with that money.
Yep.
I still don't see a problem.
Goes back to everything I've been saying tonight. If you've got a policy and they signed it and you don't go by it, what good is the policy?
I agree with you, and I don't know, I don't want to stick my foot in it right now.
Well, they're a volunteer, but they're also an employee of the city.
No, they're not.
They get paid a
Do
salary.
they get a
paid
personnel
No,
manual?
They get paid per call.
They're
Do
they're
they
not
get
an employee.
Do they get a
And
personnel
they get
manual?
workman comp if anything happens.
They get workman's
I
comp,
don't
and that's
know.
it.
I've
Do they-
never
do-
been
are
involved in a volunteer fire.
firemen,
Don't know.
they have to sign that personnel manual?
That's my
I don't
problem.
know.
Holly has never been
I
involved.
signed it
with
when
the
I
firemen.
joined the fire department.
And I have never been involved with the firemen either because they are volunteers. I'm not hiring
I
them.
mean, it's just
It's
like my
only the police
business.
chief, so I don't know if they get a
I don't
personnel
pay them,
manual.
so I don't ever even
It's
see
just like
them.
my business as a general contractor. I carry workman's comp on a job. If Rob, the plumber, comes and falls off the house and sues me, my workman comp will cover him. But he don't work for me.
Exactly, and TML has a separate.
And that's
workers' comp
exactly what the fire
plan for our
department.
fire department.
I know, but all we're stating here that she's trying to put in that if a volunteer firefighter has an accident, all she's asking is, do they just get the $15, or if we ask them to stay over for another hour or two because there's been an incident or an accident or whatever, should we just not pay them anything at all, or should they be compensated?
And that's
another
what I'm saying.
Under
$15 for a
current
call?
policy, you don't pay them anything at
The
all. So
personnel
unless we
policy-
change that, so
That's
unless we
right.
change that,
Yeah,
That's
that's
the
what
way
I'm
it's
saying. The personnel policy don't say anything about compensating anybody for going and getting drug tested.
Nope.
I know, but what I'm saying is she's wondering, do we put that in there that they're drug tested?
No, I'm not wondering. I'm telling you that these
Why
were the
would you?
responses that I got from the department heads.
So we haven't made it clear with the volunteer firefighter whether they should be drug tested if there is an incident, an accident, correct?
It's been made clear, that doesn't mean that the volunteer fire department is actually.
I have always been under the understanding that if you wreck a city vehicle, you're gonna go get drug tested. Even if a deer runs out in front of you, and the deer's laying in the front seat with you.
We
which
have
makes
done
no
that.
sense
Every
to
time
me.
a deer runs in front of somebody, we have the drug
But
test.
they're
done, too.
also looking at, what if a tree limb scratches the side of the truck, but nobody saw it, there's a big old scratch, or what if
That's
they did
common
see it?
sense.
Is that to be drug tested? That's what they were bringing up.
Yeah, they were being
Has it-
very.
If they're
Has it happened?
damaging the truck,
But that's
apparently
common
it
sense.
has.
If you're
Yeah.
going to a fire call down here on Dog Patch,
Yeah,
and you run one of them big engines up that narrow road, and it gets scratched up and down both sides, that's the cost of doing business. Are you gonna tell that person that owns that house up there, no, we can bring our nice new shiny engine up there and put your house out, drag your house down here to the highway so we don't have to scratch our truck and we'll
No,
cover
but-
we
that.
did have a garbage truck that, or one of our dump trucks, Public Works, knocked a mirror off and hit a tree, got too close to the edge of the road and hit a tree, and we had to send him for a drug
Well,
test.
see, to me, that doesn't make sense either.
But it was, came back positive.
yeah. he was
I mean,
reading
a
it
mirror-
lot.
It came back positive.
Yeah,
It did.
Yep.
yeah, that's what I'm saying. We had a
So
guy
when
one
do you,
time.
when do you, when do
he-
you and when do you not?
To me, that's common sense. A mirror is a mirror. I mean,
But he came back positive, is the
Yeah.
point.
okay, you drug test everybody in this building once a month and start firing people.
You don't do, representing them that's got that policy, you're not gonna get fired until the second time.
I'm just saying.
And, there's different ways to go about doing that.
In my business, I can tell you the easiest way to find out if somebody's taking drugs. If they cut themselves and you carry them to the hospital, as soon as you say you got to draw blood, turn it in the insurance, I'll take care of it myself.
We had a truck driver, he was running local back and forth. Then when the position come open, he was actually working a warehouse, so when they sent him to get his drug test to get on to full time, he says, no need to be going taking it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. They know.
So he lost his job.
All I'm saying is this is what was brought up by the department heads, and some of it I do
Under
agree.
current policy, everybody gets drug tested and the
That's-
volunteers don't get paid for it. So unless
That's
somebody,
simple enough.
unless
Did
the
we pay the
commissioner wants to
policeman
bring
to
it
go
up.
get drug tested? I don't think
After
we
an
did.
accident?
Yeah.
Oh, I think most cities.
Oh, yeah, you have to. I mean, if they're sitting there waiting, yeah, you gotta pay them for it.
So if we have a police officer that gets in an accident and we send him to get drug tested and it comes back positive, we're gonna pay him the hours he spent to go get drug tested?
We don't have volunteer police officers.
No, I'm talking about paid people,
Paid people, you have to.
even if it comes back positive.
Yep, you have to pay them.
You have to
Well,
pay
that
them.
just doesn't
They're
make
on the
any
clock.
sense.
On their last check.
That
On their
don't
last-
make any sense. I'm sorry, but that
I
just
know,
doesn't
but
make any
that's
sense.
federal law.
Hey, if you go over and sit 3 hours, wait, get drug tested, you get paid for the 3 hours.
Even if it's overtime, you have to pay them.
Okay, so we can address those little things.
Those can be addressed. I just didn't know if you guys found anything in the policy, in the, now,
Anything else?
Responses.
in your review of
The things that I was being made aware of or asked about, when I read the personnel policy, the mechanism to take care of all of the stuff that I was being asked about is in there to take care of it. Meaning, if a police officer has a complaint that something in the workplace is not right, that police officer should go to his supervisor. It outlines in that personnel policy, that supervisor has so many hours to respond to that and give an answer. If that employee does not agree with that, they can go to the department head. Same thing, has so many hours to respond to it. And if that person does not like the answer, then that person can go to the city manager. Same thing, has so many hours to respond to it. If that person still feels like they haven't got satisfaction, then that person goes to the commission. Commission has so many hours to make a decision. If that person still doesn't believe that they've got satisfaction, then go to Chancellor's Court. And it's all laid out in that personnel manual. And if there's a complaint or anything to do with personnel that's not handled that way, then they're just doing it wrong.
Whatever your policy says.
I mean, that's pretty much what the policy says.
Yeah, the only thing that is not appealable to the commission is if I fire somebody.
No, but let's just say, an employee come and said, well, I don't like the color of the paint in that room. It makes
Exactly.
my eyes hurt. They go to the supervisor and the supervisor says, well, just tough.
Close your eyes.
Yeah. Well, that person didn't like that decision, so they go to Karen. And she says, well, just get over it. They don't like it, they come to this board. This board says, well, that's ridiculous, we're not gonna do anything about that. So they go to court, and the court says, well, you're damaging her eyes, so now you paint the wall.
They're not gonna say that.
But if they did.
But, but that's basically
But that's
what
the
they
way
need to do.
that those complaints have to be handled. You can't, it's just like in the fire department. If you've got a fireman that doesn't like procedure or policy or whatever the case may be, that goes around all the officers and the fire chief and comes straight to the commission, it won't work. They've got to go through the right channel.
You go up the chain of command.
Exactly. That's the way it is in the Army.
Administrative
Remedies.
remedies.
And if you go through all of those steps and your problem doesn't get fixed, more likely you didn't have a problem to start with.
But really, the exhaustion of administrative remedies, whatever you all set up as the administrative remedy.
Well, it's in the
A case
personnel
will
manual.
get thrown out if they haven't followed through.
And it is in the personnel manual, and they cannot have anything done to them for bringing a complaint.
No, they can't.
I mean, if that lowest employee works his way all the way through that chain and goes to court and still has found that there's no merit to it, the city manager can't say, well, you're a troublemaker, we'll fire you. It just won't work.
Well,
Not on that basis.
You better have a better reason.
Not on that basis, yeah.
Not on that basis, exactly.
Yeah.
but most of the time, there's more to the story.
Exactly, but I'm just saying, in the best case scenario, if they had a legitimate beef and they just rubbed some people wrong getting there, they can't be held responsible for rubbing people wrong. It's just part of life.
Or we would have all been fired by now.
That's why I don't work for anybody. Stay away from that.
So, did you guys find anything else? All right. Well.
I think it's all just those little things.
The little things. Okay.
All right, discussion related to goal-setting session for 2018. You got 2 dates?
I've got the 20th and 27th of January.
I'm good for either one.
I'm good for the 27th. Of January, you say?
January.
Oh, I'm good for either one, never mind.
Okay, either one?
Yeah,
Either
I'm
one?
good.
No, did you say either one?
No, I will not be here the 20th.
So 27th,
I will only be here for the 27th. at this time.
27th it is then.
The
What day is that
27th.
on? Is that a Saturday?
Yeah.
It's a Saturday, all day, remember?
Bring you lunch.
I'll have to make some adjustments.
Huh?
I can probably be here, but I'll have to.
UT ain't playing.
I know they're
No,
not. They
You
didn't
better
play
be
last
there.
year either.
27th from when to when do we get?
Usually it's 8 o'clock to about 4, 4:30.
Morning
Do not do that.
till 7 o'clock at night.
I think it's 6 to 6, isn't it?
Yeah.
If you're talking, it will be till 8 or 9 o'clock.
We can do 4 o'clock in the morning.
Well, now I can do 4 in the morning.
27th,
I'm
27th
up at
starting,
2
what
or 3,
time?
I'm ready to go.
8,
I am.
9? Did you say 9 or 8?
I'm up at 2 and 3 every morning.
Did you say 9?
8 a.m.
8.
to
8 a.m.
4 o'clock.
I
4:30.
actually watch preaching on TV. I watch all the preachers on TV. I'm like,
On
it
Saturday?
sounds awful, but I'm like, all right, if you're gonna keep me up all night, then this is what we're gonna
What
do.
time you
What
go
time
to
do you
bed?
go with?
Huh?
What time you go to bed?
About 9,
What time do you
Take
go
my
with?
second nap.
8 to what?
3.
2 or 3.
2 or 3.
Okay.
Are you sure it's 8 or
If I have to
9?
drive here? Will you drive?
No,
Yeah,
it's
sometimes
just,
you just come up.
8?
8.
Oh, okay.
Remember, we have donuts and then he
Am I
starts
gonna
at
get a meal
8:30.
out?
Okay, all right.
8 till 10.
8 to 2 or 3.
4:30, sometimes we get out earlier.
Then everybody goes slow.
And lunch will be served.
Do what now?
So you guys, you listen to it 2 o'clock in the morning, or then
Well, I don't know about that now.
you're right down
No,
there.
but the thing that makes it nice, I have Roku, so I can pull up whatever paper I want.
Oh,
All right.
Ay, ay, ay.
Yep, Roku.
27th it is, right?
27,
All right.
8, 4.
General discussion. Does anybody have anything? Ronnie?
No.
You too?
No, sir, not at all. Just thank
The only thing I have is I'd like to thank everybody that for their thoughts with my brother, and thank the city for the flowers that they sent.
Last Saturday.
It was Saturday.
Was it?
Yeah.
I sent you a text.
I didn't see it. I swear I didn't see
You
it.
got one of the old phones, too?
No, he
You
doesn't.
told me that
But again, I appreciate, because nobody at the city really knew my brother other than Mark and Milton. So I do appreciate it. All right, motion to adjourn.
Move adjourned.
Okay, now the other meeting.
Wait a minute, we ain't adjourned yet.
Move adjourned.
Who's second?
I did.
All right, all those in
Sorry.
favor?
I thought I heard a second.
We gotta have a vote
Now, let's
first.
have a special meeting.
All right. Board of Commissioners special call meeting Tuesday, January 2nd, 2018 at 8:18 p.m. Approval of ordinance 17-688, amending the fiscal year 2017-2018 budget to include expenses for a contractual building official. Call
It's
for a
first
motion.
reading.
Make a motion that we approve ordinance 17-688.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
That's predicated on Tony Eilers being.
Yeah.
Hours.
Eilers. Okay.
All right, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The next one, are we just going to
Okay,
postpone?
table it.
All right. Approval of resolution 17R-18, classification and compensation plan for the city. Call for a motion.
Make a motion that we table resolution 17R18.
Second.
Motion has been made and seconded. Is there any discussion?
Yes, I guess I've got this. I went and done my own survey. I'll take it and pass you one down. Everybody's gonna get one, even Holly. I took the time out to go to these other cities and got their pay rates and study. I done a study on mine. And y'all welcome to look at them, go over them. If you have any questions, give me a call. There's no need to keep taking the time up right now. But you'll find some real interesting reading in there. And on that right there, you'll see that's who they're hiring right now, and that's what your rate of pay is.
Okay.
So y'all welcome to look over them, but that's actually comes from the cities.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you, appreciate that.
If they have any questions, let me know. I'll be glad to sit down and show you what I found. No
And,
problem.
yeah, I've got the actual study that was done by Gallagher for the city of Portland. So if you guys want to take a look at that, and the entire study's here, not just their pay rates.
Well, there's for the fiscal
If you
year
could email that to
2017-18,
Yeah, email that.
and that is Portland right there. I've got Portland in there.
Yeah, I've got that too.
The only one I
mayor
hadn't
called
read.
me today.
The only one I hadn't received back from was Greenbrier. Is the only one I hadn't received back from.
Thank you, Mr. Doris, you've been busy.
But I'd like all of y'all to look over it and read it, compare them. You know, like I say, if you have any questions about them, give me a call and I'll try to explain what they told me. Other than that, that's all I got. But I would like y'all to look over them. And I spent some time just getting all that prepared and with the presentation of it, and I think you'll like it,
Okay.
the way I've done it. And it's all, well, some of it's in correspondent with who's got the most and goes down. So, other than that, that's all I got.
Any further discussion? All right, we're voting on to table resolution 17R-18. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? Motion to adjourn.
Move adjourned.
Second.
All those in favor?
Better quick at that.
We're adjourned.
No, I have a bad hand, but it's coming at you.
I can tell.
Yeah, Mayor,
I'll holler at you.
I know, I was getting cold.
Well, I think this week. Well, this is.
Mayor Wilbur called me today to make sure that you got everything you needed. I know she sent you the pay
She
rates.
told me to go up there and get it, but I thought I can't right now. I said, I got something I gotta do. She said, well, can I fax it to you? I said, well, I guess you're good. I